If you're in HR or learning and development, you know the pressure. It is always on. How do you prove that your training programs are actually worth the money? It's the question that never goes away. So today, we're going to break down this whole challenge around return on investment, ROI, and find out where that real value is hiding.
It can really feel that way, can't it? Trying to calculate a precise, hard number for the ROI of learning, it feels like this great idea that's always just out of reach. It costs a ton, it takes forever, and honestly, it can feel like you're chasing a ghost. But what if we're all just looking at the problem completely wrong?
To answer that, we first have to get why everyone is so obsessed with ROI in the first place. For years, it's been the holy grail for learning pros, who are just trying to speak the language of the business and show that they're providing real, concrete value.
And let's be real, these reasons are all totally valid. Of course we want to prove our programs are worthwhile. Of course we need to justify the money spent. We have to show results we can measure. The problem isn't why we're doing it, it's how. And the way we've been trying to capture these results, that's where things usually go off the rails.
At Boom, here it is, the #1 mistake. We wrap up a 2-day workshop, we hand out those happy sheets, and we collect feedback right then and there. But think about it. At that moment, all we're really measuring is someone's reaction to an event. We have absolutely no idea if any real, lasting change has happened back in the actual workplace.
And that focus on the immediate gut reaction leads us right to the heart of the problem. We are fundamentally measuring the wrong thing. Our old-school approach is flawed in two big ways, which means we end up obsessing over metrics that, frankly, don't really matter to the business.
So on one side, you have the old way. We evaluate right after the session, and we test to see if they remember stuff. But then on the other side, there's a much better way. We shift our focus to actually observing people's behavior back on the job. We look for action, not just knowledge. Because as we all know, knowing something and actually doing it, well, those are two very different things.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. In most companies today, you've got smart, capable people. They can pass the test. They know the information. The real challenge, the multi-million-dollar problem, isn't whether they know it. It's getting people to apply what they know when they're back at their desk dealing with their day-to-day work.
So here's the crucial shift. We need to move the finish line. The real evaluation can't happen until at least 2 months after the training is over. That's really the minimum amount of time you need to genuinely see if new behaviors have stuck and are starting to make a real impact.
Now, to really get our heads around this shift in thinking, let's step away from the corporate world for just a second. There's this fantastic analogy that completely reframes the whole conversation, and it moves us away from complicated math and towards simple, powerful observation.
We've all been there, right? Trying to lose those last, most stubborn 5 kilos is the absolute hardest part of getting in shape. The changes you have to make aren't these huge, dramatic things. They're small, consistent, sometimes subtle little habits. Well, it's the exact same thing with professional development.
Unless an employee is really struggling, the growth that comes from training isn't some massive transformation. It's these last 5 kilos changes. It's the little tweaks in how they handle a tough client call, those subtle shifts in their leadership style, or the gradual improvements in how they manage a project. These are the changes that take people from being good to being truly great. And seriously, think about it. When you see a friend who's finally lost that weight, do you pull out a scale and ask for the exact number? Of course not. You just see it. You see their clothes fit better, they've got more energy, they just look healthier. The visible change is what matters, not the precise measurement. The point is, you can see they're making progress. And that right there brings us to the most important takeaway from this whole thing. We need to shift our focus. Stop trying to calculate a specific, often meaningless number, and start empowering our managers to simply observe real, meaningful change. The difference in impact here is just night and day. An abstract number like 117.3% ROI, that means almost nothing to a busy manager. But telling them you've noticed their team member is handling client calls with way more confidence, or that there are fewer arguments in the department since the training, that is tangible. That's valuable. That is exactly what they care about. At the end of the day, this is the proof the business is actually looking for. When a manager can physically see an employee getting better and contributing in new ways, that whole conversation about justifying the training budget gets a whole lot easier. The visible result really does speak for itself.
Okay, so if we're moving away from chasing a specific ROI number, where do we point all that energy instead?
Well, we should focus on the one thing that truly delivers value. It's a concept called learning transfer.
This is the goal. This is what it's all about, right here. Learning transfer is the bridge between the training room and the real world. It's all about making sure that the skills we teach don't just stay in a notebook, but are actively being used on the job to make things better. This is what managers and the organization truly want.
So, what can you actually do tomorrow to make this happen? It really boils down to 3 simple shifts. First, change your evaluation timeline. Push it out to at least 2 months later. Second, change what you're looking for. Prioritize behaviors you can see, not test scores. And third, bring your managers into the loop. They are your eyes and ears on the ground, the ones who can spot and encourage these crucial changes.
Now let's be super clear. This is not about letting go of accountability. Not at all. It's about moving toward a smarter, more meaningful kind of accountability. One that's grounded in the real-world impact that our training actually has on people and their performance.
And I'll just leave you with this final thought. In our world, we get so obsessed with what we can measure that we risk completely missing what truly matters. What if the most valuable outcomes of our work, things like confidence, better collaboration, more innovation, what if those are the very things that can be observed but never perfectly calculated?